So today's discourse is special in the sense Swami Kriyananda ji passed on 21st April. Generally we do a discourse on Rays of the One Light, but because this is the Saturday after that historic event, we'll have a discourse more commemorating Swami Kriyananda's life. Most of us, I think, know, many of us could meet him, but he passed on in 2013, 21st April 2013. And some of you might know, there was a prophecy. He had gone, was it Bangalore? I don't remember now, but I think he had gone to Bangalore, and there's this written works of Agastya there, and he had found a particular reading that was for him in that ancient book, and it said he would live to be 91 years old. When he passed on, he was 86. So everybody, was very relaxed because Swamiji always had health issues. His physical body had never been exceptionally fit. He said he had also taken on the karma of some of his disciples on behalf of Master. But so when the news came in 2013, he was only 86 years old. So many people were very surprised. But that's what it was. A few days before his passing, he had said, I just don't see how Agastya's prophecy can be right. I don't see how I can stay. He might not have said it in this same words, but he said, I don't see how I can stay on this planet which has this level of consciousness for another 5 years. And so it was a few days later, or maybe a few weeks later, he did give up his body. And what does that mean for us? I mean, we all have our lives to live, and how do we pattern our lives still keeping Swamiji in remembrance? I mean, this is not a funeral service, so we are not going to talk about Swamiji and all his good qualities and all that, and how we all remembered him personally, but we want to take from his life some practical lessons on how, when we pass on, we can pass on in that same state of consciousness that he had. And so coming to that, many of us again know his life story, but some don't. So to recap, he was born to American parents. He was born in Romania, where his father worked for an oil exploration company. What's that? Worked for an oil exploration company. And so for the first few years of his life, he was in Romania, coming back and forth to America for vacations and then going back till around World War II. This was 1926 when he was born. World War II started in 1939. They shifted permanently. They had come for a vacation to America, and then the news broke that World War II has started. Hitler has invaded Poland and England has declared war on Hitler. So they never went back, and he stayed on various schools all over the world, for some time Romania, sometime England, then in America, until as a youth of 21 he was enrolled in Brown University, which is quite a well-known old university in the US. It's near Wellesley in Massachusetts, quite near Boston actually. And he was enrolled there to learn poetry, the art of poetic writing, creative writing, those things, because he felt he wanted to be a dramatist. But around that same time, because it was his nature to ask, not necessarily others, but to ask of life, ask of his own self, it was his nature to ask, what is truth? And he came to the realization that he really did not know. And he said he searched high and low, seeking for some sort of a guide map that would tell him what life was all about, because he felt intuitively that there is some deeper meaning, deeper goal to life. This was when he was just 21 years old. And that question it was that gradually led him through a series of explorations to the understanding that truth is incomplete without the word God. He did not start with God. He did not start with his search for God. But gradually he came to the realization, well, the truly happy people in all races and religions who seem to have understood what life was all about are the saints. Everybody else, even though they have found something or the other, some level of success, some new exploration, some new discovery, But if they are asked the question, oh, have you discovered what life is all about? The answer has been no. He said it's only the saints in all religions. And from there he came to the conclusion that my life has to be dedicated to finding this essence of what life is all about, which is to find God. On a long walk, again at that same age in Charleston, he came to the conclusion by asking himself, introspecting, that God is not just this human being up there, he is a state of consciousness from which we have all been created. And our goal in life is to attune more and more to that higher and higher state of consciousness till we dissolve our sense of separateness into that higher reality. And as he pondered, he was aided of course in this by reading the Bhagavad Gita. His mom had this small book which gave short excerpts of various religions, and for Hinduism it had excerpts from the Bhagavad Gita, and he read from there. He was very impressed. Eventually that led him to the Autobiography of a Yogi. He realized at the age of 22, immediately, this is the person, this is the living guide map, road map, which I have been seeking. Nature or maybe God conspired so that he was perfectly free without any hindrance from friends or family to go join Yogananda ji. And he went there as a youth of 22 from New York to Los Angeles, across America, 4 days, 4 nights, and asked Yogananda to accept him as his disciple. Which Yogananda ji, very surprisingly, it was not usual for him to accept disciples right away, but he did. And for the remaining years of his life, from 22 to 86, he served his guru's work. And we will come to explore what that was all about. But on the outer life, while he was in SRF, he trained the monastics there. He was the head monk. He was sort of in charge of the center department, in charge of the outreach. He was one of their, I think he was their most well-known lecturer, going to various places all around the globe, giving talks, spreading Yoganandaji's message. And he rose to become vice president of SRF until at some point it so happened that he had to leave. He was, as Swamiji used to tell it half humorously, thrown out on his ear from the organization. And again he was then guided, and Swamiji again says pushed to eventually found this organization of Ananda Sangha. He remembered Yogananda ji had very strongly insisted on forming these communities of people, and he felt the calling, he felt the need to start these communities. He did that in 1968, and establishing those communities were very hard, he used to say. And I want all of us to understand here, when he started in 1968 to start this community, what was his CV? We all know, we are from corporate backgrounds. His CV was, well, here's a disciple who's been thrown out of his guru's organization with the order, never dare to set feet on these grounds again. That was all he had, you see. And based just on that, it's very hard to take, but just with that, even with that qualification, if I may call it that, he managed to keep attracting sincere devotees not of himself but of Paramhansa Yogananda. He used to say every week he used to travel to different cities on each day, giving multiple talks, just as Yogananda ji had in the 1920s, gathering few people here, few people there. And he said, Master had told me, in fact, his greatest disciple, Yogananda ji's greatest disciple, once told Swamiji, you have a great work to do, which is what Yogananda ji himself used to tell him, and Master will give you the strength to do it. And Swamiji used to interpret it as saying not just inner strength, but those people who were in tune with what Swamiji was trying to create. He said they came. He kept attracting them little by little until he had about, now we have about 300 people staying in Ananda village, which is the first community Swamiji founded. Like I said, it wasn't easy. He did a lot of writing tours, lot of lecture tours. he wrote 400 books, and he used to say some of them he had deadlines because Ananda's publication business did not exist then. So it was Times, I think Warner Company or some other company that gave him the contract to write books, and they would be like, yeah, write 7 books in 6 months. And he had to work real hard to get those done, which he always did. He took out a lot of loan. The property in Ananda village, it's 1,000 acres roughly. 1,000 acres does not come cheap, no matter what the price of land is. And he had to take a lot of the responsibility for repaying the mortgage, which again he did. And Swamiji never lost his sense of humor. And so he used to say that when I pass on my grave, the epitaph can be, he repaid his debts. So because he did take a lot of loans, and he wasn't afraid because he knew the money would come. Not by him just sitting idle, he went out and earned the money. And he kept doing that, not for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but all 63 years of his life as a disciple. Because it was in 2003, when he was 73 years old, that he suddenly felt this call. And that story is also very interesting. Somebody from SRF who handled the books, Yoganandaji's books like Divine Romance, Man's Eternal Quest, they wrote him a letter saying, we are the distributors for these books, but they are not selling too much. Very few of these get sold each year. Hardly anybody knows of Paramhansa Yogananda ji. It's been so many years since his passing. Nobody knows in India about this great saint. And Swamiji, at that, he was in Italy, Assisi. He had been staying there for 10 years because he was building the community there. He dropped everything and said, I'm going to India. Master has called me to India. And practically overnight, figuratively, but maybe in 1 week, I don't know what the time was, he called all the leaders, Jyotish, Devi and all the others, they called them to Italy and said, we are going, I am going, who will come? And he picked up a team, and in 2003 itself he established himself in Gurgaon. He started doing so many of these talks. Astha television, there used to be talks, A Way to Awakening. They became quite popular in those years. And we had a community member whose mom used to, Ashish for those, whose mom used to see these talks on Astha television. And she would say, who is this Westerner teaching us about our own spiritual teachings? Till she found out 2 years later that her son is following the same fellow, and she ends up moving with her son to this community, but those talks reached a lot of people. He did a lot of programs all over India. I myself came to Ananda Sangha in some way because of those talks, A Way to Awakening. So I have always highly recommended those. He takes 20-minute talks, 365 episodes. Every time he takes one statement from Conversations with Yogananda and he expounds for 20 minutes. It starts with a chant, ends with some of Swami Kriyananda's songs. Very, very beautiful series. If you can, please see it. And I think he completed that recording, 365 shows, in about 30 days. He used to record 10 shows a day, each show of 18 to 20 minutes. That's the kind of energy he had. He used to say, when it comes to Master, I am like sitting on a volcano. I cannot stop. There is so much Master wants me to do. Now, and then he passed on in 2013. The question we have, of course, rather than just knowing about what he did, is how he did it and how we can do something similar. And I don't mean recording television shows. I don't even mean going out and lecturing to many crowds of thousands. But that begs the question, what did he do? What did Swamiji do all his life? See, that's something we all have to ask, because we can go and say, oh, he said he wrote these many books, these many pieces of music, this, that, other. Well, there are many other disciples of Master, highly advanced and I think completely in tune disciples who didn't do any of these. Yogananda's most advanced disciple, Rajarshi Janakananda, he was a Westerner. He hardly ever lectured, he hardly ever talked. Have people here read the book A Fight for Religious Freedom? It's a book by Ananda's lawyer, which explains the lawsuit between SRF and Ananda in 1990s. There, John Parsons, he wrote this book out of his own desire to explain what happened. And he makes a statement. that after Yogananda ji passed, his successor Rajarshi Janakananda, very evolved soul, he used to give a lot of talks and this and that, and in one of Swamiji's lectures he suddenly said, John Parsons says Rajarshi gave a lot of talks, but he never did. He hardly talked. You see, but there was a disciple who was fully in tune. So we are trying to understand here, what is it from Swamiji that we are trying to take and emulate to reach his level of consciousness. And I'll tie together two things Swamiji said at the beginning of his spiritual life and at the end, very end of his spiritual life. Remember, at the age of 21, the reason he started on this whole journey was his intense desire to know truth, his intense desire to find God at the beginning. At the end, he once told somebody close to him, when I pass on, all that will matter is the answer to this question: have I been a good disciple? When I pass on, that is what I want to be known as. I want to be known as a good disciple. Have I pleased Master? Have I done His will? Somehow, when we think about disciple, because Swamiji was always a disciple all his life, that's why his photo is not there on the altar. That's why when we pray, we don't invoke Swami Kriyananda. Though in many people's hearts, he was as loved, as respected as the active voice of their Guru, because the Guru talks through an active voice. Now, when we talk about discipleship, there is a tendency to look down. Oh, he is only a disciple. He is not the Guru. Somehow on the spiritual path, spiritual progress is equated with some sort of a glamour, ability to talk deep things, or sometimes ability to talk confusing things. I remember Asha, Naya Swami Asha once told Swamiji, because Swamiji was somewhere in some city, they were going quietly for some lunch or dinner, I don't remember. There was this huge billboard of some other spiritual teacher and thousands were going there for that talk. And so Asha said, "Sir, if only you would allow us to hold an umbrella over your head and throw rose petals on your path and use loudspeakers to shout out your name, we would have so many followers." And Swamiji said, "I know, but the world has so many examples of gurus. Now we need the example of what it means to be a disciple." And that was what he was. That's all he aspired to be. When I pass on, that's all that will matter. Not all my works, not all the people I have trained, brought to Yogananda, nothing. Have I been a good disciple? Somehow he equated that question, that intense desire he had when he was 21 years old, the desire to find God, with success at being a true disciple. You see, because his goal was to find God. At the age of 21, that's what he set out to be, to know the meaning of life. And why is that? Now this is something I think we keep on understanding as we delve deeper and deeper in the spiritual path, because there is no end to discipleship, there is no end to attunement. You just keep, once Yogananda ji was asked, what's the end to this spiritual path? And Master said, no end. You go on until you achieve endlessness. And so it is also with our level of discipleship. But Swamiji explained that God is not manufactured. The spiritual aspirant, through his meditation, through his spiritual practices, service and all those things, does not manufacture God. He perceives. Spiritual progress is the path where we perceive subtler and subtler realities. And so it is when we meditate. As we meditate, as we go deeper, we might feel peaceful. We might feel a lot of bliss. We might feel a lot of stillness. We might hear the inner sounds of the chakras. We might see the inner light. But when you have that experience, you will immediately know that you have not created this light. You have not created this bliss. You have not created this sound that you are hearing. You are perceiving, you are receiving something that was already there. Somehow you have stilled yourself more until you have been able to see something subtler that was already there. Those who see the spiritual eye, they immediately know, because here's this golden ring with the blue background and the 5-pointed star. But they immediately know they did not create this, it was already there. But somehow they stilled themselves enough to see that light. And so there lies the reason for discipleship. Through our spiritual efforts, we are trying to attune ourselves to something that already is. We cannot change that higher reality. We cannot say, oh, I am going to create God who is like this, like that, and like the other with these attributes. No. The world is made in a certain way. The creator is what he is. Our job is to attune. So that requires that humbleness, that I am not in control. I will not be, if I am trying to find God, I will not be able to govern what my state of consciousness becomes, what my type of consciousness becomes. But it will become loving, it will become kind, it will become non-fault finding, all those things. You can't say, oh, I'll still be criticizing others, but I will find God. No, you don't manufacture truth. So we receive, and that is why life, Swamiji said, all of life is about discipleship. You learn from life, you receive. And I take that further to say, because we are on a particular path, we want to become disciples, not just of life, but also of Paramhansa Yogananda. The Guru is a shortcut, because if you study all of life, we'll need trillions of incarnations, and still we won't know, okay, which part of life it is more important to study than the other. So the Guru brings a shortcut here. Take this is a crash course. Follow this prescription, and you can get there much quicker rather than be lost in circles. So let us remember that part, that if we want to emulate Swamiji, we want to remember to become good disciples. We want to try each and understand what is discipleship about, and rather than wait till the last day to wonder, oh, now all my life is almost past, have I been a good disciple? Let us start from today. And every day, today have I been a good disciple? This week have I been a good disciple? To ask that question, you will also have to ask, what is discipleship for me? And that is not a question I am going to answer. We all have to come to an understanding by reading Master's works, by reading what Swamiji wrote, by seeing the life of those who we feel have trod the furthest on the spiritual path, and learning from them. We have to ourselves realize, what makes me a disciple? Is it all the work I do? Is it all the meditation I do? Is there more to it? I don't know. It's a question that's at the heart of our spiritual progress, of our spiritual life. What makes us? Because see, all those disciples of Master, they expressed him in so many different ways. So what makes us a disciple? Now again, coming to remembering Swamiji, it's very nice to remember him like that photo which is here, or many other photos. This is the favorite photo of Swamiji, that is the favorite photo of Yogananda ji. I like this photo better than the others. There is a tendency, and that's all right, because they also came to us through these human bodies. But the last meeting the monks had with Swamiji in 2013, maybe 2 months before he passed on, somebody asked him, Swamiji, you said in your books and in your talks, you often said, if you want to know me, listen to my music. You have often said that, if you want to know me, listen to my music. What do we do if we want to know Yogananda? Just like to know you, we listen to your music. What do we do to know Yogananda? And Swamiji's answer was immediate. He said, but Yogananda ji is not a human being, he is a consciousness, he is a state of consciousness. To know him, you have to meditate very deeply. And then he added something very interesting. He says, my songs, my books, they really reveal me as I am, as a personality, because I had to filter down inspiration that came to me. But my consciousness, my spirit is a different thing too. What he was saying is, even to know him at that level, we have to go very deep in that stillness. And he recommended one more thing, which the person who asked reminded me, I had forgotten. He said, if you want to know Yogananda ji, here is a practical way to get in tune with him. After your meditation, as Yogananda ji said, visualize his eyes at the point between the eyebrows. and then talk to him, call to him, saying, introduce me to God, or come into my life, take charge of my life. And then he added, you can also tune into me using this same technique. See, he added that. Now why am I bringing this up here? Let's realize that what made Swamiji what he was a state of consciousness. And no matter the outer things that we do, Yogananda ji said his teaching was the second coming of Christ. He used to often say that, because in the Bible it says Christ will come again, he will resurrect. And he said, well, that resurrection is not that he'll come physically in front of all the 3 million Christians, there are 3 billion Christians that are there in the world, but when you raise your consciousness to that level of Christ consciousness, he will resurrect within you. And he used to often say, I have seen the Christ of form, when Christ came to him in visions, but I have also seen the Christ without form, the formless Christ, that is that state of consciousness. And often during the 8-hour meditations, he would tell his students, if you go deep, you will feel my spirit in tune with Christ and the Masters. His most advanced disciple, in one of his talks, Rajarshi, used to say, he said, in today's 8-hour meditation, I was not me. Sri Yukteswarji entered my state of consciousness. It was he who was meditating through me. I lost my consciousness of being a separate entity. And many times used to say the same thing. Master entered my consciousness. And it was just like Master was using this body. I was completely in tune with him. Swamiji in the later years of his life used to say, I don't know where my thoughts end and Yogananda's thoughts begin. I see no difference now. Now that is the culmination of discipleship. You don't take Yoganandaji's physical personality. It's a state of consciousness. So you won't start talking like Yoganandaji in Bengali accent and all those things. No, you won't get possessed by Yoganandaji. See, that's not what he meant. But that state of consciousness, you dissolve as you keep stirring, that crystal of sugar, it keeps becoming smaller until it becomes one with water. And so that's the state of consciousness which is the culmination of true discipleship. Have I been a true disciple? If at the day of our passing we can say nothing less than that I don't know where my thoughts end and Yoganandaji's thoughts are there. Master used to say, I have killed Yogananda long ago. Nobody dwells in this bodily temple now but God. He used to say, he is the ocean, I am his wave. We have to affirm that every day. That's so sweet, that simile. He is my ocean, I am his wave. He is my ocean, I am his wave. That is the essence of discipleship. I have here a small selection from Swamiji himself, which we'll listen to, because it says more or less the same things. In 2013, when Swamiji passed on, I think around his birthday, which is 1 month from now, May 19th, they had a celebration of Swamiji's life. And at the end of that, that's the celebration where Swami Jyotish wore the 9-stone bangle, which Swamiji had said belonged to Swamiji, but Swamiji said, my successor will wear this bangle from now on, and then the successor's successor. So Swamiji wore that. Jyotish took the vow of becoming the Dharmacharya of Ananda worldwide. You will find this talk online. But at the end of that ceremony, they played a small 10-minute excerpt from Swamiji describing what his life was like, and I had loved it so much at that point that I went back, I found that particular clip, and I thought we should all listen to it again.
Somehow, with the right attitude, everything's come out all right. And as I look at all these communities and all these hundreds and hundreds of people and thousands of people following, I think, well, at any rate, I can feel good about it. And I do. I am so grateful that so many of you have come. I believe that when we die, and we have to leave all those whom we loved behind, and we'll never be in this body again, we'll never be able to enjoy this life again as we've known it, and do all the things and be in all the places we've been before. Yet I believe there is a string that ties us to everybody we have loved. Everybody we've hated too, but I don't hate anybody, but I have loved people. I love everybody. I love God in them. And those who respond to that love, I believe there is a tie between us. And I believe that you have been brought here, many of you, because you've been with me before. And I think that perhaps in the other world we created a community together and are trying to recreate in this world what we knew then. Master said that when people create beautiful things in this world, whether it be in painting or music or anything, it's because of their astral memories, their desire to create a perfection they've already known, but lost because they weren't yet perfect themselves. And so they had to go through this. But that world is a little bit of a taste of what we can know eventually and be one with for eternity. But we are together because we've done this together. And this is why I've had the good fortune and the good karma to be able to draw so many people, because we've done it before. It's a fascinating thought. If I have to come back, it will only be with this purpose of helping. There's nothing that draws me here otherwise. People think, well, don't you feel happy that you've done this and done that and you've done the other thing? I'm glad that I did it for God. I'm glad that people have been helped by it. But other than that, I don't think of anything as mine. I've mentioned to some of you the experience I had many years ago. I was walking up into Upper Ayodhya and I saw the lights on in these trailers. We didn't have buildings at that time yet, except I had a little dome down below. And the thought came to my mind, I did this. Then I thought, well, do I like that thought? I decided, well, not very much. It's pleasant, but it's very limiting. I did this, that means I didn't do anything else. I did this? Bunch of stupid trailers? No. I'm kidding, that's not what I was thinking. But I did feel, I don't like the thought, I did it. For my own happiness, I'm much happier thinking God did it. And that's the last time that thought has ever come to me. And who is me? If there's a little chink through which the divine light can pour, then wonderful, I'm grateful for it. But nothing else matters. Let us all try to serve Him in such a way that we can be His instruments of His love and His light and joy. Because that's all we are anyway. What makes us different from the beetles and the ants? That we're more conscious. And the fact that we're more conscious means we can be even more conscious. And we see some people have a lot of consciousness and some have very little. So it shows that this little brain isn't the whole thing. The brain can become an instrument for a greater and greater and greater consciousness. How high can that consciousness be? I say seek the heights. Go for broke, you might say. Go to the back of that ego is broken and you understand that He is everything. It's He who dreamed. It's an inconceivable dream we're living in. And the difference between this dream and other kinds of dreams is simply that when you dream at night, you wake up, you come back to the same world. But when He dreams, when you go back to your dream, it's a different dream. This world is His dream, and it's always the same dream. Until you die, and then the dream changes. But it's all His dream, really. He dreamed it all. It's His thought. You are His thought. He dreamed you into existence. And if you can just get rid of that thought of being anything separate from Him, you will find that the more you have of that thought, the more joyful life becomes, the more fulfilling, and the more complete. We were born for that one purpose. We were born to know Him. As St. Augustine said, Father, Thou hast made us for Thyself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in Thee. So if my life has any meaning, then don't look at all the things I've done, but think of the reason behind those things, and think of what has come through those things. If people's lives have been blessed by them, then I am blessed. Otherwise, I could be an emperor, and what would it mean? You know, Hitler was a pretty big thing back in the 1940s. By the 1980s, children in school didn't even know who he was, many of them. You could make the biggest splash in the world and you'd be forgotten just almost overnight. When I came here a month ago or a few weeks ago, there was a beautiful pink azalea in my garden. It was just a joy to see. Then I had to go north to Seattle and Portland, visit our centers there. When I came back, the azalea was all finished. The whole bush was just nothing but shriveled petals. That's life. And you blossom for a while and then you're gone. And when you're 80, perhaps you think about it more than when you're 30 or 20. But it wouldn't hurt you to think about it now. When you take your bath in the evening or morning, whenever you do it, and you wash your hat, your arm, think that someday it will be nothing but ashes or dust. This body that you have, it won't be with you very long. Don't cling to it, because if you do, then you've lost everything when you lose that. But if you live in Him, then you shed this body the way a snake sheds its skin. It doesn't mean anything at all. And you will wander until you finally decide, I'm tired of wandering. It's all very well when life gives you everything you want, but suddenly it doesn't, and that's the trouble with life. And that's what God has set this whole play up to help us to understand, that you don't want to suffer, and you will suffer as long as you live in an ego. Life itself is like waves on an ocean. Where there's a rising wave, there has to be a trough. Because the higher the wave, a high wave doesn't change the level of the ocean. A high wave has to be compensated for by a trough, and an equally deep trough. Every experience of joy in this world, of emotional joy, has to be and is balanced by an equal and opposite pain. Every fulfillment has to be balanced by disappointment. And when you've gone up and down that roller coaster enough times, then you begin to think, is it worth it? I say it's not. I say the only thing that's worth it is to know who you really are. Merge in Him. And people often have said to me, you seem so young. Well, I think the reason I'm young is that I don't have self-definitions. I don't have the burden of thinking, well, I've done all this and I've done this. And become sort of beaten down to the dust with all the things I've done. I haven't done anything. He did it all. Live in the present, and you will have God. When you can be happy in the present, then you have God. Joy to all of you.
So let us conclude this satsang with our prayers and with our intense desire to live our life, so that when we pass on, when we are 80 or earlier, we can say that with conviction. Okay. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend Beloved Lord, Great Masters of Self-Realization, Beloved Friend and Guide, Swami Kriyananda Ji, we thank you again and again for making this path to self-realization so simple and so clear. Bless us that we follow Thee, we follow Your examples, that we learn from Your life, and ourselves reach the summit of self-realization. May we share Your blessings and vibrations ever and ever more deeply with all who come in our presence. Teach us gradually to offer You more and more and even more of ourselves, till there is nothing left in abeyance. Divine Mother, may Thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of our devotion, and may we be able to awaken that love in all true hearts. Let's act as instruments to share these blessings with this whole world, rubbing our palms together, sharing our goodwill for the betterment of this whole world. Oh.